Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Welcome back. It is Erev Shabbos, Parsha Shemini, and I would like to share with you a brief Devar Torah. In this week's Parsha, we have the very first halachic debate. There's a halachic debate, an argument taking place between none other than Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen, and they're arguing about a particular sacrifice that Aaron and his sons had burnt. They did not eat the sacrifice, but instead they burnt it, and there was a debate about whether or not that was correct to do. Moshe argued that it was incorrect, that it should have been eaten, and Aaron explains his particular side of the argument. And in fact, in the end, ironically, even though Moshe Rabbeinu is the lawgiver, we get the Torah through Moshe. Nevertheless, Moshe said, the pasuk says, "Vayishma Moshe vayita be'enav," that Moshe heard Aaron's argument and he ultimately approved. He ultimately agreed. So the Gemara says, with regard to this, it speaks about the praise of Moshe Rabbeinu. What does it say? Gemara in Zvachim says, "Hodav lo bosh," he admitted, and he was not embarrassed, lomar, to say, lo shamati, that Moshe Rabbeinu did not take the easy way out and say, I didn't hear, but okay, it sounds good, sounds like good what you're saying, but rather, Ela Amar, rather he said, Shemati, I did hear this, actually. I did once hear this, V'shachachti, and I forgot. I was wrong all along. You were right. You just reminded me, in fact, that I did hear this, and I did forget. Why is that considered a praise of Moshe Rabbeinu? Why is that considered a praise of Moshe Rabbeinu that he admitted to his mistake? So, arguably, says Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, it would have been a lot easier, and Moshe would have had a great excuse to not admit the truth. Now, look, everybody has a difficulty admitting when they're wrong. But, for Moshe Rabbeinu, we'd almost come to expect it. But with Moshe, he had a very good reason not to admit that he was wrong. Because imagine what happens afterwards. Imagine the aftermath of Moshe admitting that he made this mistake. After all, the entire Torah comes through Moshe Rabbeinu. It's through Moshe that we have access to every single mitzvah of the Torah, other than the first two of the 10 Commandments. So if Moshe Rabbeinu can forget the details of one particular law, what's to say that he hasn't forgotten the details about other sets and other laws? So Moshe Rabbeinu could have said that to himself, and he could have said, "Lo shamati, I didn't hear this. I never actually heard this one. I'm not responsible. It's not my fault. I never heard this one. So okay, let's go with your halacha." But rather he says, "You're right. I'm wrong. I heard this, and I made a mistake." In fact, the Medrash goes further. The Medrash says that Moshe sent out a kruz. He sent out an announcement in the camp saying to everybody, to that sheshama v'shachach, that Moshe Rabbeinu did hear this and he did forget. Why was it so important for Moshe Rabbeinu to admit his wrong? Why was it so important that Moshe Rabbeinu had to tell everybody that he did hear this and he did fail in a human failing? He did forget. So Reb Chaim Shmulevitz has a particular approach in Sichas Musar, but I'd like to perhaps suggest another approach, and it's based on a klal, it's based on an idea that I once heard over in the name of Rav Matisyahu Salomon, and the idea is as follows. We have something called the Masorah. We have a tradition, of course, that stretches back all the way to Moshe at Har Sinai. And for us to go ahead and to accept that tradition, it really relies on one very important factor. And that one very important factor is integrity. For an individual who's lacking integrity themselves, for an individual for whom it's easy to lie, you'll find something very interesting. Consistently, such a person has a very difficult time with Masorah. Such an individual has a very difficult time with accepting this idea of a transmission, of an authentic transmission from generation to generation. Why? Because they say to themselves, I lie all the time. So if I lie all the time, of course somebody else lied all the time. So somebody in the line was lying. Enough people were lying, so therefore, who knows? But for an individual who themselves has integrity, for an individual whose word actually means something, they see that in others as well. And they're able to see, indeed, that the Masorah is built on good people and built on integrity, because integrity does exist, because it is real. You know why? Because I have it. If I have integrity, I can believe in that Masorah, I can accept that Masorah because I can see it in others as well. There were a lot of factors here that Moshe had to juggle. Yes, and admitting that he made a mistake and that he forgot something is dangerous. But there's something more dangerous. And what's more dangerous is walking away without integrity, because the entire Masorah is built on integrity. Someone can make a mistake because they forgot something. Yes, that could happen. But that the Masorah itself, God forbid, is not true because someone's lacking integrity, that's the most dangerous of things. Hence, Moshe Rabbeinu had to admit that he made a mistake. And in teaching the Jewish people that he was willing to admit that he made a mistake, he taught them the most valuable lesson of all. He taught them that the Masorah that they are receiving from him and that they're going to transmit to each and every generation is rock solid. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a wonderful Shabbos, and I look forward to seeing you soon.